welcome to the second episode of the Glitter Glam Rock podcast. I'm Greg and I'm with Marty.
Hello again. How are you today?
And today we're going to talk about another glam band, my second favourite glam band. And I don't know, sometimes my first favourite glam band, The Sweet.
What a band they were, eh? Excellent. I never forget listening to Ballroom Blitz. It was just one of those natural, the hair stood up on my back when I heard that.
Oh, it was just an explosion. That drum at the beginning, was just, and the production on it, it was just, that got your attention straight away. And then the singing and then the chorus, the whole thing was just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Well, according to their first producer, Phil Wayman, he basically said, he put the faders up and they cut the song, one take, that's all it took. And then when the faders went down, he just said, that's a number one.
Yeah.
And it was, wasn't it?
No, it was a number two.
Oh, no, that's right. Mud.
Kept them out, yeah. Mud kept them out. So, Ballroom Blitz to us, I guess, is the essential suite. But there's a long story before Ballroom Blitz.
Yeah, well, after I was obsessed with Ballroom Blitz, so I wanted to dig down to their roots, like where they started. So I bought the Sweet's Biggest Hits album, and these are all the songs that were before the Ballroom Blitz.
I found that album a bit disappointing, actually.
Well, you have to remember, it was their first.
Yeah.
It was just their first. They'll like everyone else, they're trying to hit the mark, sort of thing.
All right, let's go back to the beginning, okay?
Okay.
What happened was Chin Chapman were songwriters, and actually I saw Phil Wayman was talking about he'd actually tried to write songs with Nicky Chin, but nothing had happened. And then Chin found Chapman, and they'd written some songs, and somehow Phil Wayman had discovered the Sweet, but I don't think who was in it at that time. It was only
it started off with Brian Connolly and Mick Tucker. They were the two original guys. They sent in a demo because they had a guitarist at the time with them to Phil Wayman, and it got to the stage where Phil liked what they were doing. There was good harmonies and good guitar playing. And Phil basically said, all right, we've got a band here. All we need to get is just the ultimate guitarist.
And also songs. He wanted songs. So what he did was, they got the guitarist, didn't they?
Yeah, well, they auditioned for a guitarist, and apparently there was a lot of
bad ones.
Yeah, bad ones.
As you can imagine.
Yeah, but then...
in an interview I saw, Andy Scott said he went to the audition and he saw Mike Chapman at the audition, and he recognised him because Mike Chapman used to play in a band called Tangerine Dream, and they used to play together.
That's right.
He's in what I can't remember what Scott's band was.
That's
Wayne's Right Gentleman or something like that. And he said, "Can I go in?
Yeah,
can I cut in?
Can I jump the queue?"
Yeah,
and he did.
He did, yeah. And he got the part straight away. So
they were in a situation where, okay, we've got a band, and they're working through various styles, and that's where the early songs come from, because they were, experimenting with styles. For example, Coco, they had that Caribbean island sound.
But before that, we have to say that they were Chin Chapman songs. So he'd introduced them to Chin Chapman. And Chin Chapman, he said, look, I got some songs for you to do. And they were already signed. They were the Sweet Shop then. They were already signed to another record label. And they said, we can't. We're signed to this other record label. And he said, well, look, just do it as a session and I'll pay you. And that way, contractually, everything will be all right. So
I remember that, and they said the worst thing that could happen was, well, it didn't go down well, but you'll still get the fee.
So Wayman put them together with Chin Chapman. Chin Chapman had a song. They wanted to write a song that was like Sugar Sugar, so they wrote Funny Funny.
Funny, funny, yeah.
That was the first one they recorded. Then after that, they recorded Coco.
Coco.
And they were big hits, like around Europe. Those songs were big hits around Europe. Then they did Alexander Graham Bell, which wasn't such a big hit. And they thought, oh, what's going on here? Papa Joe came after that.
Yeah. So at this stage, they're just, trying to get the right sound. They're experimenting with certain styles.
Well, Phil Wayman said, like, they'd go in and they'd do the B-sides, which were hard rock, okay?
Yeah.
That's what they wanted to do.
That's what they wanted to do, deep down.
But Chin and Chapman and Wayman were saying, hey, we're having hits with this style.
Yeah.
We're having hits with this style, so...
Let's just keep going for a while and see how many hits we can get.
Exactly. And at the time, too, you have to remember the Sweet were not playing on the records. It was Phil Wayman had a little group, and Phil Wayman was the drummer, and he had the guitarist, whatever. They were laying down the tracks, and the Sweet would come in and lay down the vocals.
Yeah.
And they were complaining about that. They were saying, we want to play on the tracks.
Yeah, we want to do our thing.
And then I think the last one that they didn't play on, but they sort of got their way with getting a harder edge, was Little Willie.
Yeah, that Little Willie was the first subtle, and I mean subtle, sign of what's going to come. Because it went away from the bubblegum pop thing they were recently doing.
Yeah.
It was their first little subtle rock, that came
That's
into
right.
the
The
song.
guitars started getting heavier, the drums were getting heavier, but they still weren't playing on it. And then they were saying, Mick Tucker and Andy Scott especially, were saying to Chapman and Wayman, come to our gigs, see us play. Come to our gigs, see us play. So they came to the gigs, they watched them play, and then Wayman said to them, with the next single, which was Wigwam Bam, he said to them, okay, if you can do this in the same time me and my band do it, you've got the gig.
Yep. That was the one, Wigwam Bam.
Yeah.
That really kicked off, what was about to come. Like Little Willie was the first sign. It was very, very subtle. But Wigwam Bam was the one where, okay, you noticed something. You noticed more rock and roll of what was to eventually going to come.
Well, they went into the studio and they did it in the allotted time. So it was actually them playing.
Yeah.
So it has got a bit of a heavier sound to it, hasn't it?
And this is when the glam thing came in as well.
That's right.
They were like Steve Priest had the Indian outfit.
Yeah.
And Brian,
that's right.
Brian Connolly had two little stars on each cheek.
He was wearing a silver costume, was he, in that one? I think he was. He was wearing a silver costume and it's got B on one side for Brian and C on the other side.
Yeah, right.
But, yeah.
And, so they, and then Mick Tucker, he had the lipstick.
Well, Andy Scott was saying as soon as he joined the band and when they were playing live gigs, they'd put on a little bit of makeup, just a little bit of stage makeup.
Yeah.
And he said, but it wasn't until they got to Top of the Pops. The Top of the Pops people went overboard with their makeup. And they said, look, you guys have got to look good on TV.
Yeah.
And he said, and that's where it started. And he was saying it sort of they came up with the image of Brian was Cinderella, Steve Priest was the fairy godmother, Mick and Andy were the ugly sisters.
All right. Yeah, well, that's they all played their part, didn't they? Yeah, so we're talking about, the glam has just started. And, you could imagine their dressing rooms. They had, Mark Bolan and, people like David Bowie. And Andy Scott once said that Bowie came up and said, hey, I really dig your fingernails, because he had them black fingernails.
Yeah, right.
And apparently Bowie went out and did the same, but he had white. But that's where Bowie got his fingernails polish from.
It's amazing. You kind of wonder what was said in those dressing rooms. Hey, I like your new record, man.
Yeah.
Or there would have been, who knows what they
But
would have been
it's
saying.
so-
I like your costume.
Yeah, it's
You
so
know?
different to the ordinary. Like,
But
I love your lipstick. Males saying
Yeah.
saying that to each other. Love your lipstick and your eyeshadow. Hey,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
That eyeshadow.
I do remember though. I do remember an interview with Noddy Holder from Slade, the lead singer of Slade, once, and he was saying you'd go in there, and there'd be the Sweet would be in there, Gary Glitter would be in there, and they'd go out, they'd do their performance, and you'd go shit.
Gotta live up to
Someone
that.
else does it. You go shit. We've got to do ours. So they'd whack on extra glitter, get extra props. They're always just trying to
Outdo each other.
outdo each other. You're listening to the Glitter Glam Rock podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I suppose. Yeah. I think the next song after that was Blockbuster.
That was, I just want to say, that was the first of what I consider the golden singles. I think they had a golden era.
Yeah.
And that was the first one.
The first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andy Scott said there wasn't much song to that, but there was a lot of elements. Like
Yeah.
they had the siren, they had that blues riff, which was in a million songs, but Yeah.
And Bowie had released at the same time Gene Genie.
Gene Genie
that had the same riff.
same riff, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a million songs that had that same riff. So
Yeah.
there was nothing really musically.
Status Quo made a whole career out of that riff, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yep.
Yeah.
3 or 4 chord wonders.
Yeah.
And I love the Quo. They did it a certain way.
Yeah.
But anyway, Sweet's the subject here. And so they had that. And
They had,
Blockbuster.
was also the first time Steve Priest had a cameo.
Yeah.
He had the, we just haven't got a clue what to do,
do.
which became a bit of a signature.
Yeah.
And which was also a way of saying that, we're a serious band, but we don't take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of people thought they were gay.
Yeah.
And they acknowledged this, so they played on it.
Yeah, they played up on it.
Like, and a lot of those cameos, he did it in a real campy voice.
That's right, and would do like campy movements too.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that is the clip where he did the Camp Hitler. He did a Camp Hitler. Remember he came out dressed as Hitler and he had the swastika and stuff. I'm not sure if it was that clip. I think it was one.
I don't think so.
No?
Because unless I'm getting it mixed up with another song, he had that big cape. He had the cape.
Well, but they performed it so many times in so many different costumes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, maybe one of our listeners out there
Might know.
can tell us. But now, if you look at it on YouTube now, when he comes out as the Camp Hitler, they've actually pixelated the Nazi.
Yeah.
The pixelated the Nazi.
Yeah, he got right into it. He got right into the whole campy thing.
Yeah.
Steve Priest. He had
He was the fairy
most
godmother.
makeup.
He was the fairy godmother. Yeah. So the next single, before that, what we have to remember too is Chin Chapman were writing all of these, and Chin, when he first met Chapman was really the songwriter. Chin was the guy who financed it at the beginning. I heard an interview with Chapman, and he's really dirty on Nicky Chin. He's really dirty because Nicky Chin's family were rich, and when he tried to break away from that partnership, they were threatening lawsuits and all sorts of things. So if you listen to the demos, it's all Mike Chapman. So they're writing these things. They're coming up to them, and he's just saying, "Okay, this is your next song," dun, 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 and that's it. So the next one was
Hellraiser.
Yeah, Hellraiser, which I think that's one of my favourite songs.
It is mine too. It's just such a good Mick Tucker again. He everything was so tight,
Yeah.
And that was. See, I purchased the Sweet Singles album.
Yeah.
And that was a good album. It had,
Yeah.
a lot of songs that we haven't got to yet, but it had the Sweet Singles album. It didn't have the real early songs where.
No, that was only an Australian release.
Was it really?
Yeah, it's only an Australian release.
I didn't know that.
So
well, it was a compilation of after Funny and Funny and them. It was when they
It
found
started with
when they found
Blockbuster.
Yumoko. Yeah.
It started with Blockbuster and it ended with, I can't remember, it ended with Teenage Rampage.
Yeah, that's right.
So it had the A-sides and the B-sides
Yeah.
of those songs. And some of those B-sides.
Oh, great.
were just-
I love that, the bass in Need a Lot of Loving.
Yeah.
Such a cool,
Yeah,
really cool bass line.
yeah.
And then you got the high vocals, because Andy Scott had the chipmunk
Yeah,
high vocals.
yeah. So Hellraiser was the next one. I thought that was just a great song. Motley Crue ended up ripping off the beginning of that for Kickstart My Heart.
Oh, okay.
When I first heard it, I was at the football.
Yeah.
I first heard it, in between plays, they play some songs. And I
Yeah.
heard that, and I thought, shit, they're playing Hellraiser.
Yeah.
It was Motley Crue.
Motley Crue.
It was Kickstart My Heart.
Yeah. Wow.
So the next single was the big one, Ballroom Blitz.
Yep.
And I remember you and I didn't know the words to Ballroom Blitz when we first heard it. We thought it was Bottle of Bricks.
Well, I certainly did anyway. I don't know about you, but yeah, I was singing Bottle of Bricks, and you can't try working that out. But anyway, that's...
So that was their massive hit. I think they did an Australian tour around that time. We've spoken a lot about Ballroom Blitz. The next one was Teenage Rampage.
One of my favourites. I love
one of
I
mine
love that
too.
song.
One of mine too.
It was such a cool song, just the way Brian sung it. It had a great guitaring in it. The crowd made a difference too.
Yeah, We Want Sweet chant.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning, We Want Sweet.
They recorded the song and then put the crowd in
Later.
Yeah.
I remember...
Like Money Honey.
I remember, what's his name, Chapman saying when he presented the song to them, they said, what have you got next? And he said, I've got the Nuremberg Rally. That's what I've got. And Andy Scott thought it was a great song, it was a great hit, but he felt it was like a backward step. He thought, it's fantastic, but it's not as good as Ballroom Blitz.
Yeah.
So, we've gone a little bit backwards
Yeah,
here.
he did say that's where the cracks...
Started to appear.
Yeah.
And Brian was drinking a lot.
Yeah.
Brian was drinking heaps, so...
it was around that... Was it around those days?
Well, he was
Teenage
drinking.
Rampage?
He was drinking from the beginning.
Yeah.
But Andy Scott was saying that he was like. Andy Scott said, he didn't take this for granted. He didn't. He was in a band. They were making hits. They were making money. They all had big houses.
Yeah.
And they were in the studio on time. And Brian would come in. All he had to do was lay the vocals. He would come in, and he'd come in late, and he'd come in drunk, and everyone was getting the shits with him.
Yeah, because they put in the hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, all he had to do was come in and sing.
Yeah. So they'd said, we feel Teenage Rampage is a bit of a backward step. Give us something better. Give us something more complicated. I don't know, more involved.
Yeah.
And Chapman had written a song for Suzi Quatro called The 16s.
The 16s, great song, another great song.
So that was supposed to go to Suzi Quatro. She was ready to record it. She loved it.
Yeah.
And the Sweet pulled it. They said, no, we want it.
Yeah.
We
Actually,
want
when
it.
you think about it, Suzi Quatro would have
Yeah.
done a good job on that.
But what happened was they recorded the 16s, it came out, and then Top of the Pops, I don't know what really went on, but they had a strike.
Yeah.
They had a strike, so they couldn't perform it on Top of the Pops, so that was a bit of a flop for them.
Yeah, right.
That was a bit of a flop, so they felt like, okay,
Flopping them
we've recorded this complicated song, that's, that's got all these different parts, it's got different time signatures, and just because we couldn't get on Top of the Pops, it was a failure. So they thought, we're just like every other band. Without Top of the Pops, we're fucked.
Yeah, it was, bad timing.
Yeah. Anyway, after that, they released a single in Australia only. What they were going to do was, their idea was they were going to make an album that was the history of rock and roll. Okay, so it was going to have a song that sounded like the 50s, a song that sounded like the 60s, song that sounded like whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, and they recorded a song called Peppermint Twist, and then they said, "Oh fuck it," they threw that idea out. But they came out in Australia, and we loved that song, didn't we? Peppermint Twist.
That reminds me of Luna Park. I remember I was at Luna Park and looking at the merry-go-round, hearing that song, because at Luna Park they used to play the songs as
Yeah.
the rides were going.
Yeah.
Peppermint Twist was playing. Not one of my favourites, but
I liked it. I liked
Yeah.
it. I should mention at this point, after Teenage Rampage, they got rid of Phil Wayman. Chin Chapman took over the production.
That's right.
So when they did Turn It Down, we missed out Turn It Down. Turn It Down was before Peppermint Twist.
Yeah, the 16s came off an album called Desolation Boulevard.
Yeah.
And also on that album was a version of Fox on the Run.
Yeah. We'll get to that in a
yeah.
second. So they did Turn It Down. They did the 16s, which was a flop.
Yeah.
Turn It Down, which was a flop. Peppermint Twist, which wasn't even released over there, right?
Yeah.
And this is when they sacked Wayman and Chin Chapman took over the production. And then you're talking about Desolation Boulevard.
Yeah.
And what were you saying?
Well, they did on Desolation Boulevard. I think Turn It Down was on that album as well. And the 16s. And they did a version of Fox on the Run, which was later to be re-recorded.
I remember that version on Fox on the Run on the album. Because
Yeah.
I never had the album. You had the album. We used to play it.
Yeah.
And
It wasn't too bad.
It wasn't too bad, but it was no standout.
No, it wasn't a standout. But then when they re-recorded it,
Well, the record company said by this time Chin Chapman were writing for all these different people, and they were based in America, right?
Yeah.
So they had Susie Quattro, they had Mud, they had Smokey,
Yeah.
they had some American band that did I Want to Kiss You All Over. I can't remember what they were called. Anyway, they had all these songs, and the Sweet contacted them and said, the record company wants a single, what have you got? And they said, we don't have anything. So they contacted the record company, and one of the guys in the record company said, look, there's a song called Fox on the Run on your album. I think that could be a single if you make it glam, if you glam it up.
yeah,
So they went into a recording studio and they did it all hush-hush because they didn't want Chin Chapman to find out.
yeah, which
So, yeah.
no, he was they were dirty on.
Yeah.
At a later.
Yeah, so they went in, glammed up Fox on the Run. They produced it themselves. They wrote it, produced it, played everything, and
Yeah.
it was a fucking smash hit, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
It was. I remember when it came out.
Yeah,
it was
me too.
like
It was
one
on.
of the best songs.
Yeah, I remember on a Saturday morning, watching one of those rock shows, Sounds Unlimited or Sounds, and I remember that there was the lit up wick going across the TV.
Yeah.
And which it had that like Moog sound.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is done on a keyboard.
Yeah.
And they rocked it up. In fact, they rocked it up compared to the original recording.
Yeah, well, it had like a lot of the trademarks. It had the loud guitars. It had Steve's cameo,
And the high voices.
the high voice, the
Second
harmonies. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was really a great song. You know what I remember the most about the film clip? Mick Tucker spinning his
Yeah,
drumsticks.
me too.
Yeah,
And doing this second hand as he's spinning it.
yeah, second hand.
Yeah,
he's spinning.
it's funny that because that's exactly what I think of.
You're listening to the Glitter Glam Rock podcast. So, once again, we bought out the tennis rackets in front of the mirrors, didn't we?
Oh, of course, I had to do that.
And we had my poor brother. We used to make him play the drums on the bed
drums.
with the drumsticks, and he could never get it right. And we used to get really angry with him.
Yeah.
Why can't you fucking play Ballroom Blitz?
Yeah. And Patrick, who is now a doctor,
Yeah.
we forced him into a few things.
Yeah,
as
gave
well.
him a tennis racket, and
Yeah.
he was on there. And we were the suite, really, without a lead singer. It was like three guitarists, and we'd take turns singing the songs in
Yeah.
front of the mirror, and we'd pout and pose like the suite. And of course, we had the makeup and the eyeshadow and all that sort of
telling
stuff.
all our friends that were playing football in the corner that we had a show to do.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'll never forget the day I was playing the Sweet Singles album, and that song "Burning" was on. "Burning," that was a great song.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was a B-side.
Yeah, and it had that part where it goes doo 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 beep doo,
Yeah,
and
remember
I acted out the bit, and
Yeah.
you just could not stop laughing.
Yeah.
Just on that little bit.
That was fun. Hilarious.
Yeah.
Burning was a B-side of Hellraiser,
Was it?
by the way.
It's
yeah.
not a bad B-side.
So that was a good. You should, if you're from overseas, just check out, look up the Sweet Singles album, because as I said, it was an Australian release only. I bought it just recently.
I know you
again
did. I'm
from
looking for it on
yeah,
eBay.
Yeah, yeah. So, and it was a great album.
Yeah.
It was just a fantastic album. And yeah, so
Every song on it, every song was.
and we would
great.
mime to every song too, wouldn't we?
Yeah, we knew it.
We would mime to like everything. We'd get up there and we'd play, but we never did a concert like we did with the Glitter Band.
Nah.
Because I don't know why. By that time it was there were no gigs. No one was booking us, were they?
Yeah, and I think we were getting a little bit older.
Yeah.
And a bit more mature.
Yeah, we were like 10.
Yeah, because that Glitter Band show we did.
Yeah.
That was primary school. It was,
Yeah. That was
Oh, good days.
So the next single was Action.
Yeah.
Which is a good song. I really like it. It's I really love that song.
Well, apparently it's
It's a
the
great song.
first no cameo song for Steve Priest.
In a long time. In
Yeah.
a long time. So they were trying to change their image in a way. And if you look at the film clip, they're not wearing the glam stuff anymore. They're wearing black leather
Jackets.
Yeah.
Real heavy metal.
and jeans.
Well, what was
They've
that
got sort of-
magazine? Hammer Metal or something?
Yeah,
Hammer.
Metal Edge.
Yeah.
And they were sort of, it was more of a bit more of a status quo.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
I have to admit, I like them better in their glam.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
But they did an album, apparently all on their own, produced it, everything, called Level Headed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I remember seeing a clip of Steve Priest had his hair permed, which looked fucked, I thought. and there was another guy in there as well with curly hair and a beard. So I was wondering who that was. I couldn't imagine.
I think that was Andy Scott.
I couldn't imagine Andy doing that.
Yeah, it
but
was
then again-
Andy Scott. But yeah, they were like everyone was, like we spoke about in our last episode, how the Glitter Band were like slowly moving away from the glam
glitter
thing.
sound, yeah.
That's what the Sweet were doing.
Yeah.
And Brian's drinking was really causing a problem
Yeah.
back then. And Andy Scott was saying that about Action, he was saying that was going to be their big single. That
Yeah.
was going to be, that they were going to do everything themselves. He said it had time changes in it. It had some of the best harmonies they'd ever done. And that was the one that was going to break them. That was going to be, in his eyes, their Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
And then Bohemian Rhapsody came out
yeah.
and just fucked them.
Yeah.
Totally fucked them.
Yeah.
But he was also saying, he said something really interesting. He said Mike Chapman said to them when Brian's drinking started happening, and this was when they were having, this was during the golden age.
Yeah.
He said to them, listen, why don't you split from Brian? I'll write Brian pop songs. He can be the pop star. Okay? Brian can be the pop star. And for you guys, I want you guys to put on horror makeup. And this was before Kiss,
Yeah.
right? And he goes, I want you to put on horror makeup and I want you guys to go out and do your heavy stuff with the horror makeup. And at the time said, well, they said, you got to be kidding. We're huge.
Yeah.
And then why would we split from
Well-
Brian? Brian's one of the big things. But in retrospect, when he's telling the story, he was wondering, he was thinking, I wonder what would have happened if we did do that.
Yeah.
Maybe it would have lasted longer
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, well, it's unfortunate, isn't it? You
Yeah.
know? And I remember Andy Scott said something like, well, Brian, you know, you can do this, you can do that, but just not with us.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the next single after that, I mean, Action for me is really, you know, basically the end.
Down the slide.
The downslide
I
of the
think
Sweet.
that's
I
it.
like the song, but the next song, The Lies in Your Eyes, which I liked,
Yeah.
I did like, but it wasn't, it wasn't Hellraiser.
No,
Wasn't it wasn't Fox on the Run.
I thought it was boring. I didn't like that song much, even though I bought the single because it was the sweet. You know, you buy anything they did at that stage.
Yeah.
I think they had a B-side called Cockroach or something.
Yeah, that was the Cockroach.
Yeah, that was I didn't like that song.
Yeah, and then they had a song called 4th of July, which I don't ever remember.
No,
Another
me
one
either.
called Lost Angels, which I don't remember. Then Fever of Love. I remember Fever of Love. That was sort of a bit of a... It was like The Lies in Your Eyes, you know what I mean? It had a bit more of a disco flavour, but it wasn't that great. And then they had Lovers Like Oxygen.
Yeah, I hated that song.
But it was a big hit in America.
Yeah.
Lovers Like Oxygen was a big hit in America. And the chorus, Brian's not singing the chorus because he wasn't up to it.
No, Andy Scott.
Yeah.
Had to do it, and I think Steve was sharing some vocals as well.
Yeah.
But they brought this guy in, and he knew his
Shit.
he knew his onions as he knew his onions. That's exactly what Andy Scott said.
Right,
He knew
right.
his onions, and he was doing like he'd say, okay, to Steve Priest, right, we're going to do a song in A, but it's going to be in B flat at the same time.
Right.
Like he knew his scales and classical training.
Yeah.
And then Andy Scott loved it. And so he wanted to really go that way. And then they showed a picture of Mick Tucker looking really pissed off and angry. It was just good timing, you know.
Well, something happened with Mick Tucker. He had, I think he was in a car accident or something. His girlfriend died anyway.
Really?
His girlfriend died. So he was really depressed. And after Lovers Like Oxygen, they'd had enough of Brian and and it's like what you said, you can do anything you want, but you just
Not fast.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't imagine Mick Tucker liking that song because what has he got to do in it? It was boring. It was one of the most... I hated that song, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. So... And look...
I'm not sure I understand.
I saw... I'm not sure I understand
No,
either.
me either. We're not alone.
I've seen Brian in clips after that. Have you seen any of those clips? And he just looks like he's 60.
Yeah, he had the real wrinkles in his face.
And he could hardly speak. And he actually came out here with Brian Connolly's Suite.
Yeah.
And one of my friends went and saw him, and he said it was just fucking terrible.
Really?
It was just
musically and...
The band was great, but
Yeah.
he was just like... this is exactly how he described it when they're playing Ballroom Blitz. He's staggering around. Every now and then he's going up to the microphone going, Blitz!
Really?
Blitz! Yeah. It was really bad. And then in the 80s, Chapman wanted to reform them.
Yeah.
And he got them together. And he flew them out to LA. And they recorded some demos. The demos are on YouTube if you want to look them up. And Brian sounds fucking shocking.
Really?
He sounds shocking. And Chapman ended up coming up to them after a couple of days saying, look, you guys are all right.
Yep.
And going, but Brian, we just can't do anything with Brian.
It's just sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you hear that story. You know, when I hear that story, I think of Mick Taylor with the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
I think the Stones recorded their best
Stuff.
with Mick Taylor.
Yeah.
And I went and saw Mick Taylor at the, at one of the Sydney venues. I can't think of the name of it now. But he had his back to the audience and he was just leaning on his amp. And it's just, sad to see when, Brian Connolly, obviously.
Yeah,
Same.
superstar, glam pin-up boy.
Yeah.
Just turned 60 when he was probably only like 35.
Yeah.
And that's what his drinking had done. And he's apparently the alcohol had just destroyed his vocal cords as well.
Well, apparently he was very insecure.
Yeah.
Which was, as Nicky Chin said, one of his best qualities, his insecurity, because it made him such a vulnerable person. When you're like that, you're a nice, lovely person. And that's how he described Brian Connolly.
Well, Andy Scott was saying about Brian as well. He was saying when he first joined the band, Brian was just like really, he was insecure, but to cover for his insecurity, he was really outgoing.
Yeah.
So he'd be the one that was going around. He'd be talking to the record executives. He'd be going. He'd go talk to the groupies. He'd go on the radio. You know, he was, and he said, you need a guy like that in your band. He goes, because I certainly wasn't like that. Andy Scott said he wasn't like that. No, the rest of them weren't like that.
Yeah.
Brian was like that.
Yeah.
And in the end, he had just such a bad, demise.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Yeah, it was, well, he did all that PR work through his insecurity. And I suppose when it's all been done, what's more for him to do? It's like Brian Epstein, the Beatles.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Glitter Glam Rock podcast. So after Brian left, they remained a three-piece. They were thinking about getting someone else in, but they never did.
Yeah.
And they did a tour of America in 1981, and they were saying all the money that they'd made went into that tour. So all those houses they had, they had, all the fancy cars, everything went into that tour. Stupidly,
Yeah, why?
I don't know why. I don't know.
It's probably because they probably lacked as sponsors after Brian's drinking and that. So
yeah,
all the money that covered them in the past.
Yeah.
When all that goes away, they had to do it themselves.
Yeah, and they did a 1981 tour of England, and by that time Steve Priest was living in America.
Yeah.
So his heart wasn't right into it, and Mick Tucker's wife had died, so things weren't really.
He didn't last long after that either, Mick Tucker.
No. So look, at the end of the day, I think the quintessential sweet song was Ballroom Blitz for me.
Yeah,
Ballroom Blitz. But it's
that was their peak.
That was their peak. But it's funny that if you talk to younger people today and you mention the Sweet, you know what song they know?
What's that?
Fox on the Run.
Yeah.
They all know Fox on the Run. No one knows anything else.
Well, it stayed in the
Fox on
charts
Run.
forever, didn't it?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, but, going right back to the beginning, because I had the biggest hits album before all that.
Yeah.
They had some good little tunes, like Chop Chop.
Yeah.
I always liked that song, It was like and You're Not Wrong for Loving Me, like a little ballad harmony.
Yeah. So they're all early Chin Chap songs.
Yeah.
They're all early, as you said before, when they were doing the bubblegum.
Yeah.
Doing that. I think, and, I've heard, what was it, Desolation Boulevard, and what was the other album that had another Level-Headed?
Yeah, they had another album, Sweet FA.
Sweet FA. That was a live album, was it, or not?
No, they did do a live album called Strung Up.
That's right, yeah.
And I remember that had a few, that had Set Me Free in it, which was on Sweet FA, they wanted to call it, but then they got banned because of, the initials.
Yeah.
So they had to say Sweet Fanny Adams, but...
Yeah, that's right,
Set Me Free was on that album.
Right.
And I don't think there was anything else.
One song I really did like, or there was two songs that I did like that they wrote. For some reason, I love Medusa.
Yeah.
I love Medusa because to me that sounds real rock opera-ish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can imagine that in something like Jesus Christ Superstar or Tommy. I really like Medusa. And another song called Rebel Rouser.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that one.
Well, that was on one of their greatest hits records.
And basically that was a rewrite of Hellraiser. They just rewrote Hellraiser. So they were two really good songs. But my Sweet, to me, my favourite Sweet album is that Sweet singles album.
Yeah, me too.
That I love the cover.
Yeah.
It looks so 70s when you look at it.
Yeah.
It just looks so 70s when you look at it. It had the A-sides and it had the hard rocking B-sides. and we just got a lot of joy out of that, didn't we?
Well, like I said, I'm looking for it on eBay as we speak.
Yeah, I was lucky. I went into a second-hand record store about a year ago, and they had it there in pristine condition for about $12, and I went, "Give me," you know.
That was a bargain because they're not cheap on eBay.
Yeah, I know.
People, because it's in demand.
Yeah, because it's an Australian-only compilation as well.
Yeah.
So the only place you can get it, obviously, is from Australia. But to me, Sweet were more of a singles band than an album, which a lot of the glam acts were, weren't they?
Yeah,
they were
single orientated.
Yeah, it's single orientated.
Well, Gary Glitter he had so many singles.
Well, going back to...
He only had about 3 albums, didn't he?
Yeah, going back to Gary Glitter, I don't know, like he had Leader of the Gang, I Love You, Love Me, Love, and Always Yours, those 3 singles in a row, and no album.
Yeah.
So imagine just putting those 3 singles on an album, you know?
Yeah.
And the Sweet, they had all those songs we spoke of. They didn't put all those songs on the albums.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They put a couple of songs on the albums. And why didn't they put them on albums? That would have been fantastic.
All we got was Remember Me This Way.
Yeah.
At that time.
That's right.
So it was just quite smart, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they did that on purpose, but because Remember Me This Way is like kind of like You Had to Be There album.
Yeah.
Because anyone that's running around on stage, his voice wasn't.
You're not going to go on about this. This really scarred you.
Yeah,
didn't
it did.
It fucking scarred you.
To this day, because they got me.
You know why? Because you were so excited. I
Yeah.
remember the excitement. Because I remember the excitement of when I was getting Touch Me.
It was lay-by. We couldn't get it
took
straight away.
Yeah, 6 weeks to get it.
Yeah.
And you were just so let down.
And I was so cocky about it. Oh, mate, I got this album. It's got all the hits,
And I remember being really pissed off that you grabbed that because we didn't know it was live and it had all the hits on it. I'm like, the fucker got the good one. He got the good one.
Yeah.
And I got, Touch Me, which I'd only at the time knew 2 songs on it, Hello, Hello and Touch Me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then it all backfired, didn't it, buddy?
Yep, sure did. But at that time, they were smart enough to bring out these great singles like Always Yours and I Love You, Love. So it was kind of smart in a way, wasn't it? Because
and the Sweet had that string of those singles, a string of those singles. And I do want to say that when Fox on the Run came out, that was, to me, that was just as good as any of the other singles except maybe Ballroom Blitz.
Yeah, well, it just wasn't as the fast tempo like the other ones were.
Yeah, but it was still
had all the other
song.
elements.
And if you listen to FM radio or any retro radio and they play the Sweet, it's always Fox on the Run.
Well, it was their biggest hit ever.
Yeah.
I think it was because someone...
Well, Blockbuster was their biggest hit ever because it went to number 5 in America.
Yeah.
And Fox on the Run went top 10 in America anyway. But it was, I don't know, for some reason, I think it's been covered more. Than anyone, and for some reason, and it's been in more movies and
probably
stuff like
because it's an easier song to cover and they don't have to work so fast and hard.
Yeah.
But I thought I heard someone say they used that word ever, their biggest hit ever, because they were quite sceptical at the time when they were asked to do this recording or re-recording. They had reservations about it, but it turned out to be the biggest song ever. I don't know if that meant their song or biggest sale-wise.
Who knows?
But Andy Scott did say that.
I think it probably means in pop culture.
Yeah.
It was their biggest one in pop culture. Okay, so regarding our last episode, we had some good feedback from our last episode, didn't we?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Over 100 hits on YouTube so far.
Yeah, so I'd just like to give a shout out to a couple of people. I'd like to give a shout out to Grace Canaza, who is a big glitter girl. She's a glitter girl. She sent us photos of Gary's 1974 tour that she took herself, and the Glitter Band's 1975 tour, and there just some great photos in that, aren't there?
Yeah, quality memories.
Yeah, and actually we were talking
At the best times.
exactly, and we were talking about how we couldn't remember anything about the Glitter Band concert when we went.
Yeah.
And looking at the photos that she sent jogged my memory a little bit of what they were wearing and what they were doing. So thanks a lot, Grace.
Yeah.
We thank you. And I'd like to say, and also Grace gave us a perspective from a female fan's point of view. Like, she was talking about the crushes that they had. Like, the girls had the crushes on them, where with us,
The sexual
with the males,
element,
with us, we were more like, we wanted to be them.
Yeah.
You know? And another guy, Mario S. I'd like to give a shout. Sorry, I'm not going to mispronounce your surname. He gave me a perspective. He said something really interesting in one of his feedback. He was saying that, you guys are lucky that you had each other in the journey.
Where he was on his own.
He was on his own. So I'd never considered that some people would be,
It's totally on their
isolated on their own with this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Imagine, him saying, well, I have a show to do. Well, at least we could say we have a show.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And I'd like to send a big shout out to Claire Shepherd and the 8th member of the Glitter Band, Paul Andrew Quirk.
Yep, they're all good people, all good glitter glam people.
Yep, very stylish, generous people.
Yep. And that's it from us this week. That was The Suite. We hope you enjoyed it, and we shall return with, again, we don't know what, but we'll be back.
The sequel.
Yeah, so I'm Greg.
And I'm Martin.
And do you want to sign off how you did last time?
Oh, yeah. The appropriate 2 words of everything we're saying is rock on.